Bilam had a very, very quick tongue, a very strong tongue. He was, as our Mefarshim, our commentaries explain to us, was the nemesis of Moshe. So the opening verse in this week's Torah portion, as we read, Ele ha-Devarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'ever ha-Yarden Bamidbar barava Mosuf ben Paro ben Tofel v'Lavan v'Chatzarot v'di Zahav. Moses come and he is opening and he is rebuking the Jewish people by mentioning the places of where they sinned. And he did so, as our commentaries explain, in order to hint to them and their sins and admonish them as such, rather than going and blazing open fire, you did this, this, and this wrong. No, he just mentioned the places of what of where they did. He didn't say what they did, but where they did something wrong. And the commentaries explain, in order to preserve the honor, as Rashi says, mikpnei kevodan shel Yisrael, in order to preserve the honor and the dignity of the Jewish people. The Zera Shimshon says, sounds great, sounds beautiful. It's very pious, it's upright. No, when you rebuke someone, rather hint only the place and don't tell them what they did. But later in this book, Moses actually goes through each and every one of these sins. He recounts the episode and he rebukes. The Zera Shimshon asks, well, where did Moses' sensitivity of the Jewish people's honor and self-dignity go? He's rebuking them by hint to preserve their honor in the beginning. Yet later on he goes and he details the episode and he details the rebuke, and he's very precise, very, very strong on his rebuke. So, does he care for their honor or not? This is the question Zera Shimshon asks. He answers two different answers. First is as follows. He quotes the Midrash that says that the Jewish people were to have two things done for them. One, to be blessed, and two, to receive tochecha, rebuke. One of these two was to be done by Moses, and the other was to be done by none other than Moses' very own nemesis, Bilam. Bilam, the sorcerer, the wicked man. So the Jewish people needed to be blessed and needed to be rebuked. Now we have to play the cards. Will Moses be the one who rebukes us or blesses us? And whichever Moses takes, Bilam takes the other. So what does the Midrash say? God had the intention and says, it's better for someone who loves you and cares for you to rebuke you than for you to be rebuked by someone who is an enemy, someone who's evil, someone who wants to see your downfall, who wants to see no good for you. And the blessing, it's fine to get a blessing even from someone who doesn't love you too much, because the blessing is not coming from Moses and it's not coming from Bilam. It's coming from God. They're just acting as an intermediate. And therefore, the Midrash Rabbah says, it is so great that we were rebuked by Moses and not by Bilam. And that we were blessed by Bilam and not even by Moses. Because one had to go for each of them. That's what the Midrash says. Zera Shimshon says, if we look at our verse, it says, Ele ha-Devarim, these are the words, asher diber Moshe, that Moses said. And then he went on to hint many other things. You know what the Zera Shimshon's answer is? He says, you know what Moses was doing? He was hinting to them each of the places. He was giving a light rebuke in order to fulfill that he has to be the one who rebukes the Jewish people. But he was also hinting to the fact that you are so lucky that it is me, Moses, who is rebuking you and not Bilam. That's his first answer. His first answer is right now Moses is fulfilling his quota of rebuking the Jewish people and taking it in place of Bilam's rebuke. And he's hinting to the fact, you're lucky it was me and not your enemy. That's number one. We'll get back to the lesson on that in a second. Let's see the Zera Shimshon's second answer. Zera Shimshon's second answer is as follows. Before the Jewish people entered the land of Israel, when they were still on the opposite side of the Jordan River, Be'ever HaYarden, there was no, as we say in Hebrew, din arevut. There was no concept of guarantorship, meaning when a Jew did something wrong, it was their responsibility. If a Jew did something good, it was to their credit. After they entered the land of Israel, we became more one united population, that anytime one person does something good, it affects everybody. And whenever someone does something negative, it unfortunately affects everybody. That means prior to the entering of the land of Israel, if a person didn't keep Shabbat, if a person did something wrong between them and God, it was their business. They still could get punished for it, but it was still their business. It didn't affect the population as a whole. But after the entrance of the land of Israel, when we entered as the Jewish people to the land of Israel, if someone in China, a Jew in China, does something wrong, speaks Lashon Hara, kills somebody, steals from somebody, doesn't observe Shabbat properly, that affects a Jew not only in China, but another Jew in Eretz Israel, and another Jew in Florida, and in Canada, and in Argentina, and all over the world. We're all one spiritual body, and we all guarantors for one another. It's like when a human being has only their pinky hurting, but the whole body is aching over it. So when one Jew, no matter where they are, doing something wrong, something not at its best, it affects everybody. And the good also. Because of this, the Zera Shimshon says, since before they entered the land of Israel, they were all individuals. If they were all individuals, let me ask you, did every single Jew make and worship the golden calf? No. We know that Shevet Levi didn't, the tribe of Levi didn't. Did every single Jew worship the Baal Peor? No. Did every Jew complain? Did every Jew agree with the spies going into the land of Israel? No. There were some which were heavily involved in pro. There were some which were on the fence, they didn't know where to go. There were some which were against, some which were happy, some which weren't. There were all different types. So what did Moses do in his initial rebuke? He hinted all of the sins to all of the nation. But since he wasn't rebuking the individuals who actually sinned alone, it was everybody, he couldn't get too deep and nitty-gritty. Because it's not fair for me to walk into a room where there's 10 people who there was one item that was stolen. Only one person could have stolen it. And for me to walk in the room and admonish and criticize and rebuke all 10 people, it was only one person. But what can I do? I could come in and I could hint. Oh, something is missing. Something's not here. Could maybe someone have misplaced it? Did maybe someone find it? Let's look on the floor. I know it's not on the floor. I know one of you pickpocketed it. But what do? I look over. I say, oh, is it over there? Because I'm hinting to it. I'm giving, as we say in Hebrew, a petach. I'm giving an opening to the individual to come forth. That's what Moses was doing. He was mentioning and hinting the places of each and every place, but it was to everybody. To those who sinned and those who didn't sin. Those who were pro and those who were against. Later on in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses gets specific on each and every one, he didn't rebuke the whole nation. He only spoke to those who sinned with the golden calf. He retold the episode and he rebuked them, only them. And the same for each and every sin. Those who complained about the man, he spoke only to them. And this teaches us a tremendous lesson in rebuking. So did Moses care for the honor of the Jewish people? Of course. But when someone needs to be rebuked, they need to be rebuked. So how did he do it? He was so smart. He didn't come and blaze fire, open fire right away on everybody, or even on the ones who only sinned. He hinted, but he hinted to the culprits, and he hinted to the innocent. And he hinted by just mentioning a place. But then, when it came time to give the real rebuke, he was very specific, but he targeted only those who needed to hear it and learn from that lesson. And this is something we can learn from. So the first answer of Moses being the one who gave us the rebuke over Bilam, that teaches us that it's always proper and for us to look forward to getting positive criticism and rebuke from those who love us. If someone loves you and they're criticizing you, take it with open arms, take it with a smile, even though it's hard. And it hurts sometimes when it's from someone who loves you, because you know they care about you, and it's more often than not, it is true. But look at that as a blessing. It was Moses who rebuked us. That's the best. Always when someone who loves you criticizes, as long as it's coming from love and for constructive criticism, embrace it. Look at it as a blessing and a message God is sending you directly. And to his second answer, we always have to remember that when we are on the side giving the rebuke and giving the criticism and the admonishing, to do it very delicately. Start by hinting, start by not being too specific, and then slowly moving on, progressing to the point where you get very clear and helpful, positive, yet firm at the same time. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that we always have those who need to give us our own positive criticism and constructive criticism to us so we become better people and have the wisdom to help others become the greatest people that we all can be.